today is that we have, and our meeting is being live streamed. I should mention that. So we're going to be recording the meeting and it's on live stream because this is a public meeting space. So want to make sure that, that folks knew that piece here. But what I'm so excited to announce is that since the last time we met, and we have not met as a whole group, advisory group, since November. So I'm guessing if your life is like mine, a lot has happened between now and November. So welcome to the space in January. This meeting is going to be a little bit of a restart, but we've hired an SEL specialist for ODE, and it is from Nessa Martinez. And I know some of you have had an opportunity to meet with her. She set up some one-on-one meetings. If you haven't had that opportunity yet, we'll make sure we get that set up so that you can do that, because that was our first start here. So very excited to welcome her to the team. And so with that, I think that's all I have for my intro. Just again, very glad we're going to have some opportunities to connect and things like that, but we're on a tight schedule. We timed ourselves so we don't run out of time like we've done in the past. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Beth for a land acknowledgement.
Yeah, hello everyone. We'd like to acknowledge that the many tribes and bands who call this land their ancestral territory and honor those ongoing relationships between the land, plants, animals, and people indigenous to this place we now call Oregon. We recognize that the continued sovereignty of the 9 federally recognized tribes who have ties to this place, and thank them for continuing to teach us how we might all be here together. And I will hand it over to Vanessa.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm the new SEL specialist. Really excited to be here with you and meet the whole team. It's really nice and exciting to be in the space. It's reminded me of being a teacher, like when you don't know your class yet and you haven't seen them, you have all the nervous energy, and it just feels good to know some of you already because I've met you in the one-on-ones. You'll get a chance to get to know me a little bit better. But just to kind of help shape a little bit of my background, I'm coming to you from PPS out of the MTSS department, where we were rolling out quite a bit of SEL work across the district. And prior to that, I was a principal of 2 K-8 schools in PPS. And prior to that, I was an assistant principal in middle schools. And then prior to that, I was a language arts teacher, both in the Hillsborough School District and then in Northern California, and got my introduction into education actually as a paraeducator working with a quadriplegic student. So those are just some of the lenses that I bring to the work, and you'll hear a little bit more about me later on.
I think you're muted, Vanessa. There you go.
Did you not hear me the whole time?
We heard your whole introduction.
Okay,
so,
good.
Now we can do the battery. Go to the battery.
Awesome. That sounds good. So yeah, just acknowledging that we're in a pandemic. There's a lot going on, right? We're all connected in districts, and there's tremendous asks and great pivots that we've made to support our students and educators. So with that, just wanting to sense how we're entering the space today. And if you could just do a little battery check for yourself. What is something that is replenishing you and charging your battery right now? And if you could put that in the chat, that would be awesome. So we can see how we all are entering. What's filling you? Yeah, I'm seeing connections, kids coming home from school, excited about their day. Yay! Friendships. Friends and family time, so important right now. Sunshine. I know, I feel like January has never had this much sunshine before, so that feels wonderful. Walks in the park with dogs. Yes, pets. So important. Riding bikes and riding bikes. You and I have to talk. I just signed up for a 50-miler. Yeah, so all those things, right, that we know recharge us and give us that energy to get through some challenging moments. So we'll just take a pivot now. And what is something that is draining your battery? So it could be something that happened today or something that you feel can kind of deplete you in some ways. What are some of those things that you're coming into the space today? Yeah, worry for friends and families with health issues. Definitely a lot of that happening. Homework, Jackson, yes, homework. Double the amount of SPED evaluations, right? Weekend emails, yeah, all those things, right? That we need those things to remind ourselves to charge up and walk outside, take that sunshine, take that vitamin E and drink that water. Really important. Yeah, stress in general. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. I appreciate it. And now I'm going to pass it on to Alexa for some intentions for our time today.
Great. Thanks, Vanessa. Well, first of all, I really want to thank folks. We had some feedback and we are really open to feedback. And I think some people were kind of surprised that I met with them and said, hey, yes, like I love it all. We can do better. We can grow. And just that takes courage. It takes time to provide feedback. And it's really important so that we can make this process as fruitful as possible. So just want to start by just really saying thank you for that. It was a gift. Anytime we do get feedback, it is a gift. And because of that feedback, we have used this time today to really restructure and rethink how we do this committee. So one thing we heard loud and clear is we need to, like, this is SEL work. We're a team, we're an advisory group, and we need to build connections and trust with one another. And we do have all these phenomenal people in this room and pieces and things like that, everybody here. And we do want to make the connections because that's where we learn best from each other. And at the same time, there's this very real tension of, hey, you need to have a legislative, you need a report for the state board by September. So what we thought about, we think both things are true, and we do need to attend to both things. So we need to attend to our hearts. We want you to want to show up to these meetings. And we also know that an hour and a half is not going to be, we met with Washington in between. We had a really beautiful conversation with Washington, and we looked at the way they got to where they are, and we saw they had full day meetings, they had half day meetings, and we thought, oh, here we are once a month trying to squeeze everything into an hour and a half, speed talking. And that's just not working. So we today have an opportunity to kind of reset around our intentions. So that is our meeting today, is really to build some connections and communities to really ground in our values around this work and to readjust and realign our collective efforts. We also know by asking, we know how busy you are. So by asking for more time, that may be not what fits in your schedule right now. And we want you to take care of you and your own needs. So that could be something we talk about as well, like for you personally, if you need to step back a little, or if there's only some parts you can attend to. But that's our goal for today, is to kind of reset around these intentions. And with that, I think I think I'm still on the agenda slide here, is that we're going to start with a values activity that Vanessa's going to lead. Then we're going to talk about kind of where we've been so far, where we're going. I love when we interviewed Vanessa, she did this really beautiful job of she had this whole metaphor around a hike that we were going on, and she had this summit at the top of where we were going to reach. And I just loved it because it's like, yes, that is the place where we're all going. Then we're going to talk about just where we are right now, and we'll close at 6:30 with an optimistic closure. And then now I think it's back to Vanessa.
Yeah, and this slide is here just as a placeholder to share my deep appreciation for all the work that you are currently doing. It was amazing to meet you in the one-on-one check-ins. I know some of you were able to sign up for that. Beth is going to post in the chat if you still want to do that. There's opportunity to do so this week. And if you want to meet at a later time, feel free to email me. I'm super flexible, and I really prefer those one-on-one opportunities so we can really connect and get to know each other. I really value relationships. So just want to thank you. I feel like I've learned so much from all of you, and I'm just really excited about the work we get to do together. And I know that all of our unique perspectives are going to help us serve Oregon students the best we can. So really excited to walk in that journey with you. And then I also want to thank our ODE team. It's been a really quick learning curve. This is my second week into the position, and they've been tremendous at helping me transition and supporting me in all of those ways. So thank you, ODE team, for all of your support too. And we can move into the next one. So like Alexis said, we're going to ground ourselves in some of our values, and values are one of those core parts that make us who we are, right? There are beliefs and that really anchor our actions and ways of being and hopes that how we want to show up in spaces. So I thought, as a way for us to get to know each other and for you to get to know me, that we would do this values exercise, which comes out of Elena Aguilar's work. And she's a wonderful educator who attends to the well-being of educators. So we'll be doing one of her exercises. And I want to start off with my own core value. And this is one that every time I do this, it's always there. And that is equity. And for me, that's foundational in terms of the outlook and the lens that I look at everything from. And this quote specifically really resonates with me, and it's actually on my signature, has been on my signature for a long time, by one of my dear mentors who we just recently lost, Bell Hooks. And for me, this really captures what I believe equity to be. I'm just going to read the quote. So, to teach in a manner that respects and cares for the souls of our students is essential if we are to provide the necessary conditions where learning can most deeply and intimately begin. And I really believe that that is the place where we can cultivate that as educators, is creating that classroom environment for our students where they can show up as their authentic selves. And when they show up in their authentic selves, they can feel a sense of care and belonging. So that is one thing that's integral in how I show up. So yeah.
Pause for just a moment so we could go back to our community agreements and ground us in that slide number 6. Yes, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So glad that you could be with us. We're just going to take a couple of moments to reflect on our community agreements and try to think about this evening's time and which one of these community agreements actually speaks to you as an opportunity to commit to the work that we're doing this evening. I'm going to take a look at the clock, give you just a minute or so to just review this, and then we're going to use the chat for you to be able to share with us which community agreement speaks to you for this evening's time. And you can, oh, there we go. So I'm seeing keep hope and be accountable. We have a few of those, several of those. Be responsible. Call in versus call out. Strive for growth. A few of those. Ensure representation. Be present. Yes, I can relate to that, Mona, especially when I'm hungry. Ensure representation again, call in instead of calling out. Okay. Ensure representation, the other 7 too. Yes, Daniel, they're all important. They really are. I think for me, one of the key pieces that several of you have commented on, especially in view of what's happening in our world and in our communities across the state of Oregon, I really want to keep hope. We have too many educators, children, and families who are struggling, and they are looking for the answers and support and don't feel like it's there. So I want to practice that tonight as we're working on this particular one. If there's nothing else that you'd like to share, I'm going to go ahead and close my mic. And thank you once again for being here and being present.
Thanks,
Beautiful.
Luz.
Thank you, Luz.
Okay, so we can move forward to, I think we were on the next one. Yes, growth. So this is my other core values. When I narrowed this down to my top three, growth is one that came up for me. And that to me is really important because I see myself as a lifelong learner, and I see it as my responsibility to be curious and open and engaged, even when things or conversations get really hard, that's when I have to listen better and show up better. And so I use this representation. I actually have it right next to me right now. It's a gourd, and you can shake it up and there's some seeds in there. And when I finished my student teaching, we were supposed to create a non-linguistic representation of what we learned from our students in that year of growth. And this is something that I've carried with me in every environment. And so right now it's in my office. And it's just a reminder to me that our students are like those seeds. They have tremendous strengths and capacity, and we really have to attend to that nurturing environment to help till the soil, provide the light, so that they can become, who they want to become in this world. And so that's just something that I always bring, and that learning requires vulnerability, and it requires a lot of risk taking. And this quote is something that's at the very top of the board, and just a reminder that in order to bloom, we have to put ourselves out there, right? And so I just welcome feedback in my own journey, and appreciate any opportunity you have to remind me if you don't see me living or leaning into my own core values. And then we can go to the next one. So my third one is around community. And, I think about schools, I think about classrooms, I think about districts. Now I'm thinking about the state. We are in community, and the importance of being really good listeners in creating communities. So always that idea that we're listening to understand each other and to understand differences and connect through those is really important. And so I have an image there of, that's when I was at Laurelhurst. I was the principal, and that was a group of students that were circle keepers for restorative justice circles that were happening in each of the classrooms. And so we had opportunities once a week to check in and listen to each other and hear what was happening, from students' perspectives. So that's something that I really hold sacred, is student voice, and just listening as a powerful tool to change. So I have an ear. It's kind of weird. I found it in a file cabinet of a school, and it has become my talking piece. And it's the talking piece that I use in restorative circles, listening circles, community circles. And I just love that it's been in big hands, small hands, and it just has carried so much wisdom. And through that wisdom, I think we can heal and connect in community with each other. So that's really important to me as well. Okay. So we're going to go, yes, to that slide. So that's a little bit about me. And we're going to connect now around your own core values. So we're going to walk through an exercise that's going to lead us to identifying some of those core values, and then we'll move into breakout rooms to share those in smaller groups. So you will need something to write with and a piece of paper. And the first step is to open up the core values PDF from Ellen Aguilar, and you'll see a list of different core values that are listed on there. This is by no means limiting. It's just the intent is to really just support you and help you. And so what we're going to do is, as you have that open on a piece of paper, you're going to write down the 10 that are really speaking to you. So 10 values that are resonating with you right now, and you're going to write them down on the piece of paper. So let's take a moment to do that. So just trying to get a sense of time. How many of you need more time? If you could let me know in the chat. Yep, I'm seeing more time. Perfect. Okay, checking in on time. If folks need a bit more, let me know. Okay, I'm not seeing anything on the chat, so I'm going to assume that means we're ready. So from these 10 that you have, now I want you to look at those really carefully and feel them with your heart. Feel them as you're thinking through them as well. So narrow those 10 down to 5. So either circle, underline the 5 out of those 10. Okay. Then you guessed it. So from those 5, narrow down even further. So which 3 are calling to you at this moment? Okay. So Beth is going to launch us into breakout rooms of 3. There are some reflection questions that are on the chat that you can access, but really this is just an invitation and open time for you to connect around your values, to share what feels comfortable for you to share. You do not have to answer all the questions. You may decide to choose just to focus on one. You may decide just to talk about what that experience was like and how that felt for you going through that exercise. But do make sure that everybody has a chance to share and to introduce yourselves if you haven't done so already. So with that, any questions about what we're doing?
Which ones are we putting on the Jamboard?
Oh, Deirdre, I love it. You're ahead. So don't worry about that yet. When we come back, we're going to put them on the Jamboard, and that's because we're going to have a placeholder so we can see everybody's collectively, and then we'll follow up at our next meeting with another activity. So hold on to them for now.
Vanessa, if I could just jump in real quick, just a reminder that if you go back to the main room, we'll still be on YouTube Live. So you'll want to make sure that your mic and your video are off until we're ready to have all the groups come back. Vanessa, are you okay if I send people
Yeah,
to pick it out?
let's go.
Beth, it looks like we're unassigned.
Mhm.
Oh, now we are assigned. Maybe or no?
No. I'm not seeing anything.
I think you have to stop the share, Beth, and then you can break us out.
Okay, I don't think it's, Beth, you want me to do it? Want me to? Okay,
Yeah,
cool. I got it, I think,
working? Okay.
maybe.
Awesome. Looks like we're all back, right? Yes, 28 I see down there. So I hope this was just a little introduction and an opportunity to connect with someone, get to know someone better, or maybe just meet someone new. I know that when I talk about my values, it's very affirming, and it's really powerful to be in that space and hear how other folks are entering. So just want to appreciate you for taking that time to connect around our values. So what we're going to do, and this is a way for us to just get a sense of the whole group, is if you open up the Jamboard, and I believe Beth posted it in the chat. I'm going to invite you to take a Post-it and then write your name. And the idea behind this is that we weren't all able to be in these breakout rooms and to hear all these conversations. So to write your name and then what your 3 values are on the Post-it itself. And this will be kind of like our gallery walk and our way to see our collective being, our collective group. And we will be doing an exercise that kind of builds on this at our next meeting. So it will be really helpful to have them all captured on the Jamboard. And if you want to put them on the chat, that's fine too. We will make sure that we get all of those. Okay, I'm seeing everybody put them. Yeah, so start making some connections with other folks. I'm seeing quite a few around growth, development. Community, collaboration, equity. Well, thank you. I think this is helpful for me to get a sense of who you all are. And I know that I always walk away with a deeper understanding of our humanity, our shared humanity. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alexa as you're finishing posting those.
I had to find myself on I really loved reading all of those. So thank you. And it was a nice opportunity for me to pause. So where have we been? This is us kind of just a little bit of a look back for us. So just quickly to just kind of celebrate some of the pieces from what we've done so far, but for one of our first meetings, we grounded in the integrated model for mental health. And Grace Block, who's I think here tonight, helped us with that and provided resources for us to explore the integrated mental health model, which is going to be the integrated model for mental health, which is a key part of this work. So big touchstone. Oh, she is here. I see her in the chat. We listened to your feedback. And tonight we are sharing, some of the themes, and we're hopefully, being responsive to the feedback that you gave us. We also met with our government relations team. And so what happened, I really wanted to go back in to get very clear around the bill language, because that's what we have to do. So we sat down with Emily Nazaroff and we call it now they just changed their name. They were our GLAM team. Now I think they're our GREAT team, but acronym meaning government relation team, basically. And really got clear on what do we need to have ready for September, and what do we have to have ready for the following year. And so one of the key pieces that we got very clear on is that we will have high-level architecture framework, a proposed framework and proposed standard recommendations for the state board, so they can give us feedback on what are our next steps And then how do we then continue with that standards work, refining that standards work with educators that are in school, rebuilding the panel. Again, there'll probably be some crossover work with this advisory group, but it was really good to just get very clear with them. We did a little optional state scan. It was a small, mighty group that we met on January 10th. And that was good to get a little bit deeper into some of the states that we're really following. And we hired Vanessa. That was a big piece, having someone to really hold this work in its entirety, and to have somebody who has been working in SEL for a long time. So we're really excited that she's here. And then, like I said before, we met with Washington, had a very nice conversation, and started really exploring a lot of their work because they also have a legislative report. They also had, it was good to also know, they also had like Ed Northwest writing the report. I think they worked with a couple other groups. So they had a little bit more additional funding. And it was also just really good to find out, okay, how do we do this with what we have, and really be able to just set our goals. And so we did a bit of a refresh, a restart on rethinking how we do this advisory group. So I think I got us to where we've been. And if I missed anything in advisory group, you're also totally willing to also unmute, and if I missed a step. And so next, I have the where we are now too. All of a sudden I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I have all these. So we also, what we decided to do, I'm like a big fan of what we call one pagers in the agency, even though they end up not being one pagers, but it's like, how do we really get clear of what we really mean? Where are we going? How do we just kind of set the stage and put something together? So if we can, I think at this time, we can probably put that, Beth, are you going to put that in the chat for us? Perfect. All right. And so this was our first look at how do we kind of think about where we're going to go. And it's like I said, I'm not going to talk through it per se, but what I'd like you to do is take some time, and hopefully everybody has access, to just take a minute and read through this document. Because what we did is, and you can kind of look down, we kind of talked about a little bit of what's the background. We're just kind of do a little bit of walk through the purpose, who we are as a group. We pulled in the whereas statements that are such a pivotal piece of this legislation. We talked about our community agreements that we made, and then our commitments. And then the next phase is, how do we actually do this work? We can't all do it as a whole big group. We're going to have to split up into some work areas. And that was one of the reasons, Vanessa being able to meet with you and hear from you and build off each other's strengths is going to be a critical factor as how we move forward. So take a look. Vanessa's going to lead you in an activity after this to provide some feedback on this. And so go ahead and I'll zip it and take a minute to look through this document, and we would love your feedback on it. I mean, this is still rough draft thinking. Nothing here is final, but this was our best coming together on how we, SBE, great suggestion. State Board of Education. And we will definitely, so any of these kind of things like that, put those in there. I think, do they have commenting access?
No, we can set up so that they can.
Let's get everybody suggestion access. Do not be afraid. We work in Google Docs all the time. We love for people to write comments and suggestions. So please do. So I'm thinking, does 5 minutes sound okay for reading through the document for folks? Okay, so I'll be quiet, and at 5:55, if you want to turn your camera off. People always make fun of my eyebrows when I read, so I usually turn my camera off when I read. So do whatever you need to do just to take some time to reflect and read. All right, just checking. If you need more time, can you, let me put out my little tiles here. Can you give me a show of fingers or hands or raise hands? All right, looks like people have time. Oh, I see Fran needs a little more time. So we'll do another minute and then unless you have a question, Fran.
Nope, sorry, but I can just go with the group too. I don't want to take up Kurt's time.
You're okay. We can do we'll do 30 seconds. How about that? And then people, good. I hear Rebecca too. So you're not alone. We'll do another minute. And these are great questions. We really appreciate it. We may switch because we were going to do a rosebud thorn activity. And I think it's actually better for you to have the comments on the document. Vanessa, you can decide how you want to, if this serves the purpose of that next activity.
Yeah, I'm thinking that it does. So I think we can just go through the comments.
And Deirdre, you're not able to see the comments or make them. Same with you, Daniel? Huh.
If you refresh, because we were on there just first as invitees instead of collaborators.
Try a refresh. Yay! Did that work for you, Daniel, on the refresh? You're muted though, so hopefully I'm just reading your facial expressions. Anyone else?
Too many screens open. I think, is it on the document itself? Should it be on the HB 2166 advisory group document?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't see comments. I see people clicking. Kind of weird. But I don't want to hold things up. I can throw comments in the chat. Just odd.
Well, Vanessa, can I make a suggestion?
Oh, I think I figured that out.
Yeah.
Do you want to go ahead and open up to the whole group to kind of share some comments for, orally if they're not able to enter on here, and then we can capture those by taking some notes and just open it up for a group discussion?
Yeah, that sounds good.
So I think you probably noticed a couple changes. One is extending this meeting out a little bit and we decided to keep it on the same date because you already have these on your calendar. We did make a mistake around President's Day. We realized that, so apologies, and we had to bump that one out. And then we made those for 3 hours. So 3-hour meetings, and the purpose of our advisory group time would be to hear from the groups. And so less ODE talk, which has, I know, been a primary part of this has been, but more hearing out from the different work groups to report out what they've learned, what their recommendations are, where we think, and then where we might take some of the recommendations and what we learned from that group back to our organizations, share those, and then come back and finalize. So this group serving kind of a different function as a place to hear from the work groups and to hear recommendations. And then the second part is that work group piece. And we have a survey. Hopefully we were able to update the permissions on the survey. Yes, we'll send out invites. Invites will be on your calendar. We finally figured out the live stream. We figured out a couple of the little technical kinks that we needed to work out. And then the other piece on there, hopefully, like I said, were you able to figure out the survey? Because I know a couple of people clicked on it and weren't able to get in there.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that and it's not, I don't know, for some reason it's only ODE folks and I'm not seeing that change, but let me keep looking.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just, and Beth or Grace or Vanessa or Luce or anybody else jump in here, and everybody would love to hear just initial unmute, share some reactions. We can read what's happening in the chat. This will really help us. We'll definitely be able to work from here. I can't guarantee we're going to have answer to everything that you share, but this was, again, wanted to bring this to this group as a proposal for you. So please invite you. Original reactions, things you liked. Start with maybe the roses, then go to your thorns. Buds?
Alexa, this is Fran Pearson. I was just wondering if I could ask a question because I was probably
That
taking
is that is definitely one of the, like, the rose metaphors is a question. Yes. I don't know
Okay.
what part it is, but yes.
So yeah, I was taking way too much time on the first couple pages. So I didn't really get down to the SEL work group. So I'm kind of just catching up with like some of the suggestions. And is the link, is that what you're talking about? The survey is in reference to the link that's embedded there. Okay. So like we would be able to click on that, or folks would, and express interest or something. And okay.
Sorry, I might have missed it. I might have not been paying full attention. Who is this? Like, who is this for exactly? Just us or other people?
Good question.
This was kind of a sense-making document for us to land on with this group, that if we were to go back and look at like kind of an artifact from the group to say, what was the scope and sequence? What was the why? What was just to kind of put it all in one place for us. And it really is kind of a grounding document for this group. And then it's also an artifact of the work when we look back. So one of the nice things, like I said, when we went back to look at Washington's work, we were able to see their meetings. We were able to see when they, all these pieces along the way, which, we have posted the meetings, we posted some other pieces, but this we felt was like a central place to just kind of ground us. So it really right now is meant for us, but it could be something that we use as a communication tool of, where we could share this with others in the process of where we are.
Alexa, I really like the fact that I can explain to other people my involvement and what we're doing. So it puts everything in one spot. It's good for communication. Like you said, it's for us internally, but also I feel like it's a great reference point for working with community, if that makes sense. Thanks, Fran. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
I have a logistical question. I know someone else had a comment about what's happening in the big group sessions. They're expanding to 3 hours. We're having these meetings outside in these smaller groups. And part of that, my concern, and it may just be me, is that I have other meetings that are scheduled already, and the 3:30 start time, we're not even like all out of school yet at that point. So I'm a little concerned about that earlier start time.
And there should be some room on the survey for you to express that. I mean, we just wanted to not put like a different date on the calendar and try to reshuffle. And we also know that it just won't work for everybody. We tried to like put it toward the end of the day. So thank you for that, Kate. I really appreciate the comment. And then the survey will allow you, again, like, where else do I meet with this other 3:30? One, you're not required to join a work group. I just want to say that. We would love your participation, of course. Two, we are going to ask for you to put down some times that do work for you, and we're going to try to coordinate those. And that's what the survey, as soon as we get it going. I just have to say, Vanessa has been amazing. Vanessa started Tuesday and we were like, okay, get ready. Here we go. Meet with people, join this, start a survey. So she's doing great. So Vanessa, I hope you're not stressed out about that.
No, we're figuring it out. I think I gave editing access to Beth, and no, she looks like she can't do it. Either way, we will send it out to you. So via email. So don't be stressed about that. There's no rush to get this done tonight. It's just for you to sit with the scope of the work and then think about your own time and what you're capable of doing as we think about how we reorient ourselves in this work.
And I also want to address a question I see from Jim. I had understood that this year was the framework and next year was the standards. That was one of the reasons we kind of did a deep dive back in again to the bill language to really understand it. And not that we're going to be, again, it is this high level. And someone also asked in here too, like, what's the difference between the framework and the standards work? So I think that's something that we're going to get really clear on, but the ask on the bill is that we do propose put together a recommendation for proposed framework and standards. And that doesn't mean that that is the standards we're going to land on forever, because I'll just give an example. Ethnic Studies had an advisory group. They pulled together an advisory group, they put together proposed standards. We then brought those same standards to the following year to a K-12 group and got feedback. And we had different people on that committee. And some people said, well, this one is actually better in third grade than it is in first grade, or we're going to rework the language around this because it's more developmentally appropriate. And then we brought that actually back to the advisory group, got some feedback on them, and then we finally went forward for adoption. So I hope that helps clarify a little bit. And I know there's a lot of comments. So if you're in this, I'm hearing from a couple of people who are like privately chatting me, so there's so many comments in this Google Doc. We'll clean this up and we'll put the comments back to you in a much more clear and concise way.
I think my big concern is around like, how are we going to get community voice in this process, or how are we really going to like live out those equity statements and centering communities of color or centering historically marginalized and oppressed communities if we don't allow that piece to happen first and really get clear around like what communities are wanting before we do the other standards and framework work.
So Annie, thanks for that question. And so I think on the scope and sequence, or the tentative part, we had the engagement group meet first, because for that very reason, we want to make sure to capture that, right, that wealth of information and perspectives early on to help guide where the framework goes. So that group, that will be one of the first kind of charges, is to figure out, okay, how are we going to do this? What are the groups that we're going to ask, and what is that process going to look like? And then bring it back to our next meeting to bring out to the full advisory group and get feedback on it. So the intention is for that group to do this work first, and to that work group to really lead that at the get-go.
This is Grace, and I also wanted to weigh in on that question, Annie, because I think it's extremely important. And I just wanted to mention that even though this advisory has a very specific charge around SEL standards, that this work is not occurring at all in isolation, and that, you know, as an agency, we are very actively and intentionally reaching out to communities to make sure that we're centering you know, family and youth voice, that we're centering communities of color, that we're engaging, you know, all of the constituents in the state, and that it's a continuous and evolving learning process. So what you're seeing here is a small snapshot of a much larger initiative. And so those voices are being heard and asked, and we're constantly engaging around this work. But you may not be seeing that specifically in this space, but it's most definitely occurring.
Do we have an idea of how that, like what you're talking about, Grace, that engagement, how that would be connected to the engagement group, or what that could look like?
I don't really want to dominate the space. And again, that's an excellent question. I think that we have work to do internally in terms of how to connect all those threads. But again, the agency, you know, there's the Student Success Act, the Student Investment Account, all the mental health promotion work. And there's just a tremendous amount of engagement with students and families around all of these larger issues. Fran Pearson is here from OHA, and they're doing a tremendous amount of work in that area as well. So I guess what I wanted to point out is that even though this group has a very discrete charge, that it is part of a much larger conversation around how to best serve students and families, and that you're seeing this small snapshot of it, but it's much larger in terms of engagement. But I do, I do hear you and hear your point, and also that there's a lot going on that you're not seeing.
And this is Mona with Office of Indian Ed, and I'd just like to follow up with what Grace is saying. All of our state plans, like the American Indian Alaska Native State Plan, the Latinx, LGBTQ plus plan, they're all being engaged along the way. And most of them have advisory groups. So it is like, we're like a ripple in this huge pond of work that's happening simultaneously.
I guess along with that, I'm just thinking about it as we're talking, sort of thinking about the engagement piece along with Annie. I'm also thinking about, like, I'm from Southern Oregon, and it would be really great to know, I guess, that we're, sort of trying to touch on different parts of the state as well. I know that's been a big part of the discussion with both this group and other groups. And so, I mean, just that would be really valuable to know if there's an engagement group going on. I'd really like to know what areas are we engaging, not just what populations, but, there are different populations within regions, of course. That would be really valuable, at least for myself. And I think that I would think for others as well.
I can give you one example, Rebecca, and that, part of the work of the agency is to get input and feedback from all of the districts across the state about the efforts that they're engaging in around mental health and mental health promotion, what they're doing, what they need. And so there are a lot of different feedback mechanisms that we are looking at, whether it's the student investment account, community engagement level, whether it's the ESSER 3 plan engagement level. So there's a lot of input that's coming from districts across the state that we're currently looking at. So this is definitely not, an I-5 corridor or whoever shows up in this space and has the opportunity to. But as Mona said, and again, apologies, because it's really hard for us to capture and share back all of these various initiatives. But as part of ODE's equity plan, it's absolutely essential that we're engaging and asking as many folks as possible. And that's taking a lot of different forms, but it's definitely, all of that information is definitely being fed back into this process. You're just not seeing it as directly as is occurring, I guess.
Thank you, Grace. I would just add too that if you're a part of that socio-emotional learning engagement work group, you're going to help plan out, different representation that we'll need to get around the state. So whether that's different communities, different organizations, education, student voice, as well as regional representation. So if you're interested in helping kind of figure out where all the different voices are that we need to bring into the process from the beginning, and then where we'll circle back at the end to get feedback, that'd be great to have you involved in there.
One other thing, I guess, with that you mentioned, that if a person were to, let's say, join the engagement work group, for example, would there be any opportunity for them to, shift, although it might be tricky, but to shift to, another work group at another time? Or I don't know if that makes sense, but like, I may have interest in too, if I had the time to do so, obviously not at the same time, but like, yeah, I just, out of curiosity with that, I guess, what would that look like?
Yeah, and I would say absolutely. We need people that you all who have expertise, interest, passion to join the groups that you're interested in. And if that means that you want to be on multiple ones, that we could make that work too. And then Subin, I see you have your hand raised. Did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I wanted to give space to the conversation on engagement, which I think is really important, but I'm also thinking about the frameworks group as well. I'm looking at the bill language, and it's a very bold bill. There are a lot of elements in there that you probably won't see in most other states. And so that's also one of the things that I felt challenging about the last activity we were doing. We're looking at other states. I was like, we have bolder language in our state than I think other states do. And so a lot of the examples that I think we can look at from other states really look at the child level, like their indicators and their standards are looking at the child level. And a lot of the language within the bill is talking about school level and district level, where I think we have a lot of opportunity in terms of our framework to be kind of creative there and thinking about how to implement some of those things. And so while like, I don't know if this will be an unpopular opinion, but maybe there are some aspects of the framework that can happen parallel to the engagement process, knowing that there's language in the bill that already stipulates some of those things.
Subin, thank you for your comments too. And if you're interested in multiple work groups, if you wanted to add your name in the survey, once we make the survey available and you all could access that, go ahead and select the ones that you want. And I think Subin made some observations from the review that he was doing. And I think that you'll find that as you're working across, maybe there's some ways to create some connectivity across and just do some really great things, as you were just mentioning. So is there any other questions that we could answer at this time?
Well, and just also want to honor that, you know, the idea that this is messy work. I mean, this is not, we cannot put together, some of the work will be parallel and we'll be getting feedback and there'll be different parts. So it is, I wish it was cleaner. I would, trust me, our jobs would be way easier if we could, but we're going to do it well. So that's kind of this reset meeting, is that we just we needed to slow down in order to move fast. We are going to be sprinting toward a finish line at some point, you know, but more like a relay race now that we're kind of working together on this, that we get to this point in September where we can feel really proud that we have produced a report that is based on the most recent research. That includes your expertise, because you were selected for this committee for a reason. It includes the voices of our students, our families, our schools, our districts. So I think that's going to be the ultimate goal, is how do we get there? And again, this feedback today, I know we're not able to answer every question, but this is just tremendously helpful for you to be able, just providing this and the verbal comments as well. Really appreciate it. I don't know if we ever got our survey up, Vanessa. There's been a lot of like.
No, I made a copy and shared it with both of you, and I don't know what's going on. So it must be an account situation, but we will get you the survey. So don't worry about that.
You just have to remember to answer that's the hard part. Whenever you get a survey on email, it's hard. We have you all right here, but we'll still, yeah.
And I also want to just say that we'll be making all of our documents open to the whole group. So there'll be chances for you to check in asynchronously too and make comments. So we'll make sure that we enable all those features so you can just kind of keep track with how things are moving along the way as well.
All right, I think just want to give it another minute if there's any other questions, comments, feedback, either in the chat or on the document or. All right. I think we're ready to move on to what our next steps are with the group. Jennifer Sappington, are you still here to share? Oh, maybe it's already been shared.
All right, so our next meeting, so we changed the date to February 28th. And that will be from 3:30 to 6:30. And we hope that you can make it. As you noted in the communication document, our grounding document, there has been that time change after tonight to honor the feedback we heard from quite a few of you, just needing more time for you all to talk with each other and for us to really dig into the work. Then also you're going to see an invitation for the upcoming meeting. So please look for those. That we'll just expand those out, and just please come when you can to those new meeting invites. We're also needing to make sure that they have a code for each one that will allow you to join. So those will be changed in there. And then the other is just to please review the survey, and we're going to send a follow-up email to everyone around your interest areas. And then we'll work with you all to kind of lock in some dates and times that we can all meet between now and February 28th. And so we wanted to end with an optimistic closure. And so we started today with checking in on how you all were entering the space, what was charging your batteries, what was draining it. And so after our time together today, we'd like to close with how you're feeling as you leave the space. So please, either out loud or in the chat, if you would respond to how you're feeling as you're leaving our meeting tonight, that would be great. Thank you.
Just really appreciate the honesty in the chat here. A lot of information shared tonight. So yes, time for processing. I hear a couple people saying overwhelmed. It is a bit of a revision. Little envy coming from the cycle set.
So I want to thank our resident student, Jackson, I think, has private messaged me a way to make this work. So let's see if you all can jump onto that form.
Working. I see Subin with the thumbs up there.
I'm able to click on the form now.
Yay.
Jackson, thank you.
Jackson.
The only thing I would add to the form is you might want to make the name portion a required question, just in case, if that's important to have names. That's the only thing that looks like it's optional. Sometimes people opt out, even accidentally.
Yeah, good point. Please include your name.
Some contact information of some sort.
Okay. Well, thank you. We're going to end our time, and just appreciation for your engagement, for showing up, for rethinking how this is going to look moving forward, and just excited to go deeper in the work. And I am feeling that this will give us the opportunity to do that work and to collaborate more closely. And again, please feel free to reach out with anything. I will be your primary, and Beth as well. We're going to tag team this together. So just appreciative of your time, and we will stay on for those of you that want to still connect. And for the rest of you, just wish you a really nice evening and a couple extra minutes of time, the gift of time.
And if you haven't yet signed up, I wonder if we can put that also to meet with Vanessa. And even if you've already met with Vanessa and you feel like after this meeting, you need another meeting with Vanessa.
Anytime.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night.